arrest. We learned, in fact, just yesterday that the California man who went on that shooting spree killed his wife first. We're talking about Kevin Neal. He then shot his two female neighbors who had filed a restraining order against him. When it ended, he was dead, along with 5 others. Domestic violence appeared to also have been a motive behind the massacre in Texas. Devin Kelly killed 26 people inside the church his mother-in-law attended. He had sent her threatening text messages. A mistake by the Air Force failed to put his name in a database that would have prevented him from owning any guns after he was convicted of battering his wife and her baby. And here in Jacksonville, 2 weeks ago, we of course remember sisters Lisa and Ashley Rucker. Ashley was killed. Police say her boyfriend is the one who did it, and her family, John Phillips is joining us here, a local attorney. Her family had talked about a history of abuse. And John, we'd like to bring you into the fold in this conversation because, first of all, bringing any kind of awareness to domestic violence is important. It's extremely important. Extremely. And second of all, you get a lot of calls into your into your office from people who are asking questions about when they can get temporary restraining orders. What do you tell them? Right. First of all, some days it seems like a newsroom. So we do family law and criminal defense and personal injury. In the family law and criminal defense often overlap with these calls. And it's tough because there's several different types of injunctions. Basically, the law is designed to protect people who have familiarity, dating, domestic violence, that type thing. But there's also stalking injunctions and other things for people that are a little bit more remote. And so everything is a factual analysis that we have to do to determine whether you qualify under the law. And so that said, as we were talking also during the commercial break about social media, if you've been dating someone, you've broken up, and they're not threatening you in person, but are sending you threats online, Facebook, Instagram, is there something that you can do when it comes to getting a restraining order against them, do you think? There is. You can always apply for a temporary injunction and see if the judge is going to let it fly. And you don't need an attorney to do that. They try to make it pretty simple. Once it gets to the permanent injunction, so once you have a temporary injunction, they hold it off for a trial to determine if you need a permanent injunction. And once you get to that point, it really depends on what you have. Texting may not be enough. The law doesn't want to protect you against trolling, right, as we know it now. It wants to protect you from potential harm. But it's a fine line between somebody who's a bully in the cybersphere versus the people like we're seeing now that pull out guns and cause great harm. And obviously we've seen they've been armed with guns, heavy guns, serious guns. Guns that fire multiple rounds, within seconds. Right. That said, getting a temporary restraining order, they're supposed to give up their weapon, right? But is there anybody monitoring that? How does that work? We've seen it in cases where, after an injunction's entered, and the judge gives you, your 10-page order of all the things you can't do. It's literally check boxes, check, 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 and there's not an enforcement patrol to go see, okay, did Mr. Smith give up all his guns? And so they are going back to their home on an honor system. And the problem is these are people who have done dishonorable things and we're trusting them. And certainly, hopefully they enter the system that they can't buy more guns in the normal business commerce. But you can always find a gun. If you want a gun, you can find a gun. And so we've opened up Pandora's box. There's not a lot that's checking on the back end to make sure these people are abiding by an order. And so we need people to speak up if so your neighbor's been doing this, but you still see them, sharpening knives and shooting off rounds. You've got to report that, and that's a crime. You got to be nosy. Be nosy because you could save someone's life. Don't take it to an extreme, and that's not what I'm suggesting. Right. But the point is if you hear something, say something, because whether it be violence when it comes to adults, but also the children involved. In fact, as we end this interview, I'd like to just show you the images of victims of domestic violence. Amanda Cooley, who we remember, St. Johns County, again, her estranged husband told to give up his guns. The day of the hearing went and shot her, killed her, and her friend as well. We've had children who've been affected by this, countless people. If you know someone who's living in a violent relationship, call, get help.
Certainly.
An attorney, call Hubbard House. 24-hour hotline is 904-354-3114. There's also an 800 number, which you can find later this morning, linked to this interview, which we'll post on the morning show page of news4jax.com.